Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Halo teman-teman, saya Safira Salsabila dari Prodi Teknologi Informasi kelas TI 01. Kali ini saya akan membahas tentang perusahaan animasi terbesar, Pixar Animation Studio. Pixar adalah sebuah studio animasi komputer Amerika Serikat yang berpusat di Emerald, California. Pixar dimulai pada tahun 1979 sebagai graphic group, bagian dari divisi komputer Lucasfilm yang sebelumnya keluar sebagai sebuah perusahaan pada tahun 1986 yang dibiayai oleh Apple Inc., perusahaan dari Steve Jobs, yang menjadi pemegang saham mayoritas. Kemudian, pada tahun 2006, The Walt Disney Company membeli Pixar dengan harga 7,4 miliar US dollar. Pixar telah menghasilkan 14 film yang dimulai dengan Toy Story pada tahun 1995. Semua film telah menerima keberhasilan kecuali Cars 2 yang kurang sukses secara komersial. Salah satu dari contoh animasi Pixar yang sangat terkenal yaitu Onward. Onward adalah film animasi komputer 3 dimensi fantasi urban tahun 2020 yang diproduksi Pixar Animation Studios untuk Walt Disney Picture.
But times change.
Morning, Mom. Hey, birthday boy.
By the laws of yore, I must dub thee a man today. Kneel before me.
That's okay. I have a gift from your dad. He just said to give you this when you were both over 16.
No way! It's a wizard staff. Dad was a wizard.
What? Your dad was an accountant.
This spell brings him back. For one whole day, Dad will be back.
What? Back like back to life? That's not possible.
It is with this.
I'm gonna meet Dad.
Whoa, feet!
It's getting harder to hold!
Ah, he's just legs. I definitely remember Dad having a top part.
Oh, what did I do? Hi.
We only have 24 hours to bring the rest of him back.
Until then, ta-da!
Oh, that's great. Dad, you look just like I remember.
You got a problem, Shade?
If it's adventure you seek, you've come to the right tavern.
Oh, no. We might be out of gas.
But it says we have a full tank.
No, that doesn't work. Growth spell. We grow the can, and then the gas inside will grow with it. Elbows up.
I'm trying to focus here.
Focus.
Holy, forget it!
It worked! The can is huge! And the van is huge! And you're... Oh no.
Hi, I'm Adam Habib,
I'm Sharon Callahan, ASC.
and we're going to deconstruct the cinematography in Pixar's latest release, Onward.
I'm gonna meet Dad.
Whoa, feet!
It's getting harder to hold!
Onward is a story of two brothers
Two elf brothers, Ian and Barley,
who are on a journey to meet their father.
and the magic spell goes horribly wrong, and so
We only have 24 hours to bring the rest of him back.
as a camera DP, my role is to bring out the visual structure, or come up with a visual structure that helps express what's going on an emotional level in the story.
A lot of my role on the film was to find ways with light and color in particular to really support the film emotionally.
We actually came up with two very different camera styles for each brother in the movie. So you have Ian, and he's represented by this idea of order. We often express his character with, really similar focal lengths. A lot of the shots are either a 50 or a 40. There's really not a lot of camera movement. It's a lot more calm. Barley is represented by this idea of chaos. His camera is often handheld or on Steadicam and is sort of imperfectly reacting to the magic and the chaos that's going around.
The topology on his face with his nose made it really difficult to use hard lighting on him very much, and so we kind of ended up having to soften the light and keep it fairly horizontal to make him look as appealing as possible.
Here we go. Focus. Something wrong?
Sorry, it's just your stance is, here, chin up, elbows.
The sequence that we call Bigger Man, Dan wanted to be our swamp trope of a fantasy scene. So, you know, using a lot of green lighting as the base for the scene gave that kind of nice swampy feel along with the wet streets and stuff.
This scene was wonderfully laid out by Leo Santos, one of our lead camera and staging artists. He did a really wonderful job of, you know, keeping the comedic moments flat, and that we often talk about that, you know, having this flat staging.
Back, slightly arched. Okay, how's that feel?
Great.
Oh, one more thing.
Barley.
Okay.
You know, comedy is something that was really important to Dan early on. One of the references that we would talk about a lot was Edgar Wright.
Geographical location shouldn't factor in the application of the law.
The camera is such a part of the storytelling in those films, so it made me feel like, okay, we're going to have a visually strong film. We would try to respect those moments by almost cluing into the audience, like, okay, well, here we come for a gag, and we would come around to do that flatter staging. And then when it was more about the emotional intensity or this idea of Barley really getting into Ian's head, then we could come around more on axis and do that more staged in depth, which is something that Edgar Wright does so well.
And I really like the, you know, red and orange traffic light kind of punctuating out on that, especially with our nice anamorphic bokeh.
As the magic spell starts and kind of the moment of the scene hits, we start staging more in depth. We start going between those wider lenses and longer lenses to try to amp up the intensity.
Elbows.
What?
Elbows up. No, it's too high. That's too high.
I'm trying to focus here.
That was something that was important to Dan Scanlon, the director, to make sure that we could have the excitement of Ian trying to sort of attempt magic purposely for the first time, and also the comedy of just having this older brother who won't let you do anything, you know, on your own without kind of giving you those little tweaks.
Hearts, fire.
We almost never get that close to Barley anywhere else in the film, and I think that's what it feels like to Ian in the scene of like, God, this guy is like right behind me and won't sort of let off. We use that push-in to heighten that feeling of discomfort for Ian.
We had magic spells that were going to emit light, and figuring out how to color them showed some contrast between kind of more the normal world at home and the fantasy world that they were going through on their journey. You know, we placed a sodium vapor street light near the characters, and then used the kind of more green environmental lighting kind of as fill light to get that warm, cool contrast.
Ridrigor Invisia!
Ian and Barley are out on the quest, and they find themselves confronted with an obstacle in the form of a bottomless pit.
Anything that falls in the pit falls forever. And it's a really interesting scene because it can tend to feel very visceral, you know, with the stepping out over nothing.
They have to use magic to get across it, but Ian is not confident in magic yet, so he's still sort of being coached by Barley.
Hey, you can do this.
I just wanted that sick in your gut kind of feeling that you get when you stand over a long ledge. One of the fun things about the scene was we actually got to experience it in VR as we're figuring out the scale and the size of the set. And I remember the feeling of you would step up to that edge, even though it was in VR, even though you knew you were wearing goggles, depending on who you were in the crew, you got either mildly, you know, discomfort, or some people just really felt like
heart-stopping, you know. So we tried to see how much of that kind of feeling we could get into the film, because it's kind of hard to convey that. One thing that's really cool about working in the computer is that you can bend physics to your will. Wanted to start introducing some feelings of fantasy, and so like one of the big conceits in this scene is using these big, huge, voluminous clouds that usually you see a lot in fantasy illustrations to create this sense of scale and this sense of scope of the scene, and to create, you know, some nice light and shadow patterns over the scene to, again, you know, increase that feeling of scale.
But this one got fun for me, especially at the moment when he has to keep believing as he walks across this truss bridge. So The shot where we, drop way down to the bottom of the canyon, it would be an expensive shot, right? You'd have to send your second unit down there to do it. The fact that he's kind of equally suspended, he can't go back, he can't go forward. It was sort of like stranding him in the middle of the frame. Another film that we watched was The Walk, the Zemeckis film, because I think I read somewhere that in the 3D version that people were actually sick in the theater, and I was like, okay, that sounds like a film where they really pushed it.
And I wanted to keep the sun angle as low as I could, just because I think it makes the scene feel a little bit bigger. And I really wanted to place that shadow line on the far side as a goal for Ian to reach too. I definitely wanted to push the colors a little bit so that the warm tones are fairly warm, but it kind of wreaks havoc on the blue skin tones of the characters. We kind of had to light them special to keep their skin tones looking blue enough, because they wanted to go green really easily. One of the things that we figured out early on is that if we made the spell warm in color, it looked like it was fire and that it might burn the character. So we decided that we were going to stay in the cool range. We didn't want it to feel too dangerous. I tried to find kind of a signature color for different parts of the film, like when they go underground, it's the orange torchlight until the green gelatinous cubes shows up, and then it's just all green light. And so I tried to find some kind of bigger hammers to hit to get a little bit more color variety in the film.
Pete Docter has a great way of talking about this. He says every shot really has two things going on. Number one, what is the information that the audience needs to know to understand what happens next? And then the second thing is, how do we want the audience to feel about that emotionally? So that's where we can start to use either a lens choice or camera movement to help the audience or guide the audience's emotion about how we want them to feel about this piece of information that they've just gotten.
Pendapatan yang didapat dari animasi ini sebesar 144,9 juta US dollar.